Hi, I'm Kitty.
And I'm Jennifer.
And we're the O'Neill sisters.
And we've got a beautiful project for you. It's a Blingy Ombre bracelet. This bracelet is easy to make and easy to wear.
We'll show you how to create an ombre look using 3 colors of thread. We'll show you how to attach rhinestone cup chain to leather cording and how to put on the button clasp.
This one is fun. Let's get started. To make this bracelet, you need 24 inches of leather cord in chestnut. You need 24 inches of embroidery thread in cream, sand, and chestnut. And then you need cup chain. Cup chain is like rhinestones strung together into a chain. This is a 7.5 inch length of cup chain, and it's fine 2 millimeters. You'll also need a 1/2 inch shank button. Ours has a little tree on it. And then you need scissors. The first thing you want to do is fold your leather cord in half. And we think the easiest thing to do is match up your ends and then just pull your cord down. And you end up with a little loop. And this loop is going to end up being part of our clasp. Next, you want to take the first color of embroidery thread that you're going to use. We're going to use the chestnut first. And we're just going to tie it on to our folded leather cord about a 1/2 inch from the end. Just like that. And we're doing just a simple overhand knot. So you do tie it together once and then twice. And then pull that tight, like that. And I'm going to scoop my knot up a little bit so that it's where I want it. And one thing you want to be sure to do is test with your button to make sure that this loop will go over your button. That way you'll know for sure whether you got the loop the right size. So this fits through just fine, but it's also tight enough that it's going to hold the bracelet on. So now that we've got that tied on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim my thread a little bit, just so it's about, I don't know, 1/2 inch or so. And then I'm going to hold that thread down with one finger like that. And I'm going to take my embroidery thread and I'm going to wrap it around my folded cord on one side of the knot, and then I'm going to go right over that knot 1, 2, 3 times until I get to the other side of my knot. And that's pretty much just to hide the knot. Now I'm going to be sure to keep holding that thread so it's kind of behind my folded leather cord. I'm going to flip this over, and now you see the front of my bracelet is nice and tidy. Now I'm going to hold this thread with my fingers like this, and I'm going to grab my cup chain. The cup chain is what's going to bring all the bling to this bracelet. I'm going to take the very end of my cup chain and I'm just going to rest it right on top of those wraps that I just did with my thread. And I'm going to do it so that the rhinestone is face up, like that. And while I'm holding it in place with my left hand, I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to wrap this thread between the 2 rhinestones once and twice. And what that's going to do is start to hold that cup chain down onto the leather cord. Now I'm going to just keep wrapping. I'm going to wrap again 2 times, but I'm going to go over the next rhinestone. So I'm skipping a rhinestone and wrapping twice between the next 2 rhinestones. And that's pretty much the whole technique of this bracelet, is wrapping the embroidery thread 2 times around the leather cord in between each rhinestone on our cup chain. And as you're working, be sure that your embroidery thread doesn't snag on the little edges of the rhinestone cup chain. Each rhinestone is held in with little prongs, and sometimes the thread can get snagged on that. So just be sure that you're wrapping in between the rhinestones. And if it does get snagged, you can just, back up, pull your thread back like that, and you can unsnag it and then keep going forward. I'm using my thumbnail to hold the cup chain in place. Whatever works best for you, you'll find your own technique as you're working. And it gets easier and easier as you go because the cup chain is being held down now. And now it can just sort of, hang between the 2 leather cords. And as you wrap, it'll wrap itself into place. And now I'm getting enough of my cup chain wrapped that I want to check the length of how much I'm wrapping, because we do want to make this 3 colors. So I've got a little cheat sheet that I created here that has about the right length for each color of my thread. So what I'm going to do is just put my loop over the loop and hold my bracelet up there and see how much more I have to go until I'm done with this color. And it looks like I'm about halfway done with this chestnut color. So I'm going to keep wrapping. And the measurements don't have to be exact at all on this bracelet. It's going to be wrapped around your arm, so no one's going to be looking super closely at if you have 20 rhinestones wrapped or 23. It really doesn't matter. It's more just to make sure that you leave yourself enough cup chain so that you're able to get all 3 colors represented in the bracelet. I'm pulling the threads pretty tight, mostly because it helps hold the 2 leather cords together in the back. And that way the cup chain won't slip down in between when you're done. So just pull it kind of tight. And as I'm going, I'm noticing that my bracelet is twisting a little bit. You see there's a little bit of a natural twist to it. Don't worry about that at all. When you're done, you can kind of mush the bracelet around and you can move the rhinestone cup chain to make sure it's on the top of your 2 cords. So don't worry about that until you're done, and then we'll show you how to manipulate it to get it exactly how you want it. So I'm going to check this and see how I'm doing with my length here. Oh, it looks like I went a little too far, so I'm going to back up 1 rhinestone. That's why it's helpful to have a cheat sheet like this, and that way you don't have to count your rhinestones and you don't have to measure. I'm going to back up 1 more actually to there, like that. So now I'm ready to tie on my next color. And to do that, I'm going to just set this down and grab my next color, which is this beautiful sand color. And this part is a little bit tricky, but once you do it, you'll be a master. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my bracelet over so that I'm looking at the back, and I'm holding my cup chain in place with my index finger. And here's my thread. I'm going to take my other thread and rest it just on top of the bracelet like that, so that it's perpendicular to my thread that I've already got coming off the bracelet. And I'm going to tie this thread to the other thread. To do that, I'm going to do the brown one first. I'm going to just wrap it around that sand color, go over the top and through the center. And I can see that my threads are coming apart a little bit. This is 6-strand embroidery thread, and the threads can come apart a little bit. And if they do, you can just twist them together with your fingers, and those ends will go back together. So now that I've got that through the hole, what I want to do is tie the knot pretty close to the back of my bracelet, and that's so that the knot ends up on the back. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take the sand color and I'm going to tie it in a knot also, and what it's going to do is create sort of a double knot, and it's going to keep those threads nice and tightly connected so that I can continue wrapping in the next color. So you can see I've got the 1 knot tied next to the other, and that's going to keep these threads nice and tightly snug together. I'm going to trim leaving about 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to hold the tails of those threads behind the 2 leather cords like that. Take my next color of the sand that we just tied on and continue wrapping just like I did before. I'm going to go in between the next 2 rhinestones twice. That's once and twice. And because this is getting longer, this thread is going to start getting snagged on my loop at the end. So what I'm going to do is just hold all the thread in my hand, and that way it won't get caught as I'm working. So I'm just loosely holding it. And I'm going to keep holding the little tails behind my bracelet and continue wrapping 2 times in between each rhinestone. And you can put these colors on in any order you want. We just picked sort of, an ombre look, so we were going from dark to light. But you could mix it up and put the chestnut in the middle if you want. or you could reverse the colors. Really doesn't matter. So as I'm working, I'm just sort of moving the bracelet out of my way with my hand. You'll get into a rhythm once you get going. And I think I'm to a point where I should check and see how much more to wrap. So I'm going to get my cheat sheet again. And I'm just going to hold up my bracelet with the matching up the loop to the loop. So it looks like I'm right where I want to be. So that means I'm ready to tie on my next color. So I'm going to lay my bracelet down. I'm going to lay it down face down so that this thread is sort of held in place. And now we're ready to tie on our beautiful cream color here. And to do that, I'm going to pick up the bracelet with the back side facing me like I did before. And I'm going to lay the cream thread so that it's perpendicular to my sand thread. And I'm going to tie a knot around the cream thread with my sand thread by making a loop. And this is just a normal knot and pulling it through. I'm going to move my knot up a little bit closer to my bracelet before I tighten it, because that way it'll end up more on the back of the bracelet and not on the front. Although if it does end up on the front, it gets wrapped anyway, so it's not a huge, doesn't really matter. So I'll pull that tight. And now I'm going to tie the cream thread in a knot around that sand thread and make my little double knot there. And I'm going to trim my ends. Like that. And then I'm going to turn my bracelet back over so I've got the front facing me. Hold the knot and those tails behind the bracelet, and then take my cream thread and start wrapping again. Cup chain compresses and stretches apart, and for this design we've got it stretched apart, so just be sure that you're extending the cup chain as you're working so that the thread is tied in between each rhinestone. And I can see where I've got one of my threads snagged on one of my little rhinestone prongs, so I'm just going to back up and pull it off there. It comes off pretty easily. And then rebundle my thread in my hand and keep wrapping. And for this final color, you don't need to check the measurement again, because you're just going to keep wrapping till you've wrapped all of the cup chain. And then we're going to show you how to do the last little part and put on the button clasp. And now I'm at the end, and what I'm going to do is continue wrapping just past that last rhinestone. And I'm actually going to turn the bracelet around so that my two loose ends are facing the other way, because it's just easier to work. So see, that's my last rhinestone in my cup chain. I'm going to wrap the thread around once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. And now I'm going to tie this thread off. To do that, I'm going to split my threads into 3 and 3. Remember, I said that this is 6-strand embroidery thread, so you can just use your fingers like that to separate the threads into 3 and 3. And I'm going to flip my bracelet over, and I'm going to pull one set of the 3 and 3 up through the middle. And then I'm going to tie these 2 sets of threads in a knot on the back. Just a simple knot like that. I'm going to tie it twice. And then I'm going to trim. And to trim this, we like to leave just a little bit of thread. It's going to get hidden by the button clasp. But also, if you want, you can always take a little bit of clear nail polish and tack these little ends down against the back of the bracelet. But really, they're not going to show. Now we're ready to put on our button clasp. And to do that, we've got our cute little tree button. And we're just going to slide it on face up onto one of the cords, like that. And we're just going to tie these 2 leather cords in a simple overhand knot. And to do that, I'm just going to make a loop, take the 2 ends, pull them through, And then I'm going to flip it over so that I can hold the button and hold the knot together in my hand, and then pull the threads, and that's going to make it nice and tight against the back of our button, like that. And then I'm going to trim the ends. This leather cord, when it's new, is a little bit slippery, so we like to leave a little bit of some tails, and that's so we can pull this periodically to retighten. As you wear this and as it gets a little wear, the leather will get softer and the knot will hold tighter. So in the meantime, you can just leave some tails and pull it tighter periodically. We also like the way it looks. It looks very boho. Now we want the button to be on the top of the bracelet with the cup chain. So I'm just making sure by manipulating the bracelet that my cup chain is on the top. And you can see it gets a little bit twisted as you're working, but you can just manipulate it so that the cup chain sits on the top, kind of in the crevice between those two leather cords. And then we'll put our loop right over our button. And there's our beautiful Blingy Ombre bracelet.